Whiskey, bad, bad whiskey, bad, bad whiskey, made me lose my happy home. When I left home this morning, I promised I would think, stay real straight and sober, I swore I wouldn't drink.
Welcome back to Sergio Explains. I am Sergio, and in this video I will explain the whiskeys that have added artificial color. This is the second video I make about whiskey color. You can see the first video, which was about all natural color, no artificial color added, in my YouTube channel at Sergio Explains. Contrary to what most people think, a lot of whiskeys contain artificial food coloring in them, and it all comes down to the legal definition in each country of what the distilleries can add to their whiskeys. So let's start with the whiskeys in the United States. The United States produces bourbons and also other whiskeys that are not bourbons. By law, bourbons cannot contain any artificial food coloring. So if the label says bourbon, you can be sure it's all natural color. This also applies to straight American whiskeys. So if the label says straight, it is also all natural color. Now, American whiskeys that do not say bourbon or straight in their labels might or might not contain food coloring in them. It is not illegal, for example, to add food coloring to rye or grain whiskeys, and the law does not make it mandatory to list the food coloring in the label. But a great majority of American brands simply does not contain any food coloring. That is not the case with Scotch whiskies. I have here several of the most recognized and established whiskey brands in Scotland with very long traditions of making whiskey. And these particular bottles are not their cheapest products either. Which one of these do you think has artificial color in them? Glenlivet 21, Glenfiddich 30, Johnnie Walker Blue Label, or Royal Salute by Chivas? All of them have artificial color in them. That's right. A great majority of Scotch whiskies contain artificial food coloring in them. Just like American whiskeys that are not labeled bourbon or straight, it is on the one hand legal to add food coloring in them, and on the other hand there is no legislation that obliges the producers to list it on the labels. United Kingdom law simply states that the only food coloring that you can add to Scotch whiskies is the one known as caramel color or yellow number 5. In other words, you can add as much food coloring as you want to Scotch whiskies as long as it is the caramel color, and you don't have to list it anywhere on the label. So, how can we actually tell if a Scotch whiskey has artificial color in it? Well, that's kind of tricky. First of all, if a Scotch whiskey does not have artificial color, the producers would usually list it on the label or in the box. And they will say something like all natural color, or it does not contain any artificial food coloring. And therefore, by default, if a Scotch whiskey does not say all natural color, or it does not say no artificial food coloring added, then chances are that it contains caramel color yellow number 5 in it. And this is so unbelievable that you're probably thinking that I am crazy or I am wrong or I don't know what I'm talking about. and you're going to go Google it right away. But if you bear with me for just 1 minute, I already did all the research for you, and I can prove it to you right now. There is actually a very simple way for you to check whether a bottle of whiskey has artificial color in it or not. Many of you whiskey fans are probably familiar with the Whisky Exchange. The Whisky Exchange is a famous whiskey store located in London where you can walk in and buy both common and rare whiskeys. And they also have a wonderful website through which they sell their products. But most importantly, they provide some very valuable information about their whiskeys and about whiskey distilleries in general. So, if you go to the Whisky Exchange website and search for a specific bottle of whiskey, then you click on the Facts tab. If it says coloring yes, it's because it has artificial color in it. On the other hand, if it doesn't say anything, like this, the Macallan, check the tab for facts. It doesn't say anything, it's because it's all natural color. Try going back to a Glenfiddich. You check the coloring. Coloring yes. Now let's try going back to an American whiskey that they usually do not have any food coloring added to them. Jack Daniels, it doesn't say anything. That means no coloring. Back to a Scotch whiskey, Royal Salute. Most Scotch whiskies, coloring yes. Let's go back to an American whiskey like Tin Cup. Most American whiskeys, coloring no. And you know, this is quite ironic because the stereotype is that in the United States, things are more, how can I say, Mickey Mouse, while in Europe, things are supposed to be done following some serious traditional ways. And adding food coloring is something that you would think that the Americans would do and that the Europeans would never even consider doing, especially to an item as emblematic as Scotch whiskey. But the truth is exactly the opposite. On the other hand, there's actually a very good reason for this, and it's all about the processes through which whiskey acquires its color from the wood in the barrels. And they use different processes in America and in Europe. So I made a third and last video about whiskey color called Sergio Explains Whiskey Color 3, in which I explain that it might not be so bad for producers to add artificial food coloring to their whiskeys. That video is already posted in my channel, YouTube/Sergio Explains, and I invite you to go watch it right now.